you just released your first game. Could be on Steam, could be on itch.io, I don't care, and maybe it was a giant success or a big failure. But no matter how the experience went, in my opinion, you should always do what is called a post-mortem. If you don't know what a post-mortem is, you can often find them on the r/gamedev subreddit, where people are like, I spent 7 years making a 2D platformer that sold 3 copies, I don't know why indie gamedev is pointless. Or you may have encountered this YouTube channel through some post-mortems we did on our own games, such as the videos where we cover the Forge Industry launch and how it wasn't that great. At this point they're a bit old, but you can still check them out over there, because I think we as a studio are pretty good at doing post-mortems. Maybe not as much at making the exact games, but looking back and figuring out where did things go wrong, where do we move on from here, how do we make sure that our next games are going to be better. I think that is something that we are pretty decent at. So in this video I want to talk about how you can also take a look at your own game's release and figure out where to go on from there, because there are some things you need to keep in mind for it. And the first thing you should do once you've launched your game is to just have a few weeks before you do the post-mortem to collect data. When you launch a game, you'll have a lot of feelings and a lot of hunches probably, but when you're doing these post-mortems, they really need to be as objective as possible. That's the only way that you're really going to get a lot of information out of it. And that can be from a lot of sources. The obvious ones are things like sales numbers, wish lists, refund rates, things that you can very easily access. Some other things you can do is also not just purely numbers, but also just make a giant list of every review, every comment that you got on a trailer for your game or whatever. And especially this is something that we didn't do for our first game, Forge Industry, is if you're using an engine like Unity, for example, set up analytics. Not just to be able to see like, oh, everyone is crashing and like it's not a good experience, but also you can do things like having intermediary checkpoints, so to say, where you have a dashboard to see how far certain people progress in your game. Maybe nobody gets past the tutorial stage, or maybe nobody gets past the mid-game. Those can also be very good points to look at, okay, where are things going wrong and how should we improve from there on. And then once you've gathered all of the data and you do also have like your own personal experience of developing the game, there are 4 main areas that I want you to go through and just look at, okay, how was the process of making this game. The first thing you should take a look at is the development process. And here I don't really mean writing the code, but mainly just how did I start with my game idea, for example? Did I have a game design document, or did I just start throwing things together in Unity? Did I shift my scope a lot of the time? Did I do any project management? Did I just completely blow every single deadline out of the water? And anything basically that is more of the producer role of making your own game. These can often be the biggest issues. Like, you probably can handle the code or the art skills, but just figuring out to make everything in less than 10 years can often be a big challenge. And especially when you're making those first games, I am very much a proponent of making your first games smaller, making them in a few months, making them in half a year, making them in up to a year, just so you can do these post-mortems most quickly and learn from them. Then the second area to look at is the technical one. This is where you have things like, oh, the code, the art style, the visuals, whatever, they come into play here. One of the biggest mistakes in this regard that we did for Forge Industry, that technical regard, is we started with our core gameplay loop and we made like a little game jam for it. And then what we should have done is just taken that game jam code, thrown it out once we actually knew what we were looking for, and just completely restarted programming with the mindset of, okay, these are the different mechanics we're gonna need. Instead, we just kept on adding more and more code to an already very shitty base, which meant that we had to do like 7 big refactors throughout the development process that just cost us a lot of time and didn't end up working out as well. Also things like, hey, maybe not learning 3D modeling from scratch when you have 0 clue about what's going on is a good idea for your first game. Those are things that you would put in this category as well. Then the next category is the design category, and this is where we're talking purely about, hey, game design. Was my game fun? Did I do playtesting? How did I determine my game was fun? Those are things that you need to think about as well, and this is where those analytics can come into play, because we didn't realize at first that we had a shit tutorial for Forge Industry and that nobody understood what they were playing because we didn't playtest enough and we didn't have analytics to see, hey, everyone is dropping out before they even finish the tutorial. Those are things as well that you need to keep in mind and that you can look at, okay, how are we going to improve this? And then the last big pillar, of course, is marketing and launching the game. I think marketing-wise, honestly, Forge Industry, we ended up with like over 2,000 wishlists at launch, which doesn't seem like a lot for some people, and for others it's like, oh my god, this is so much. I think for a bunch of clueless people like us, we were doing really good in like the marketing aspect already of Forge Industry, but we made a lot of big mistakes, such as originally trying to launch in the middle of a Steam summer sale, which don't do it because you will get no visibility at all. Like the fact that your game is going to be released is going to be overshadowed by all these AAA games going on like 50% discount or whatever. Those are things to keep in mind as well. So basically you're going to take those 4 categories and list down every single thing that you're like, hey, this should have been better. It's going to be a bit like the style of those 23 mistakes we made video I talked about earlier, but now you're going to categorize every mistake in one of those 4 big categories. Now, if you made a lot of mistakes in the technical or design aspect, it may be worth considering switching your engine for your next game, in which case you may want to take a look at the sponsor of this video, which is Adventure Forge. Adventure Forge offers a powerful no-code approach to narrative game development, making it easy to get started when you have a lot of ideas, but no clue really on how do I make my entire game a reality. You're more of the person with the big story than the technical chops to make it a reality. And this no-code approach allows you to very quickly validate, hey, does this story make sense? Does this game make sense? And also just easily share your game builds with other people to get their feedback. What's even better is that Adventure Forge comes with some great Cinti polygon assets included as well, making it very simple to get your game looking great from the start, because purely using an asset pack like Cinti, which is included in the engine as well, is going to help you massively in already getting a decently looking game out there. There are a bunch of games made with Adventure Forge available already as well, such as Tales of Fortunata, which is set in a brand new universe by Jordan Weissman, who is the founder of Adventure Forge and is also the guy behind the Battletech and Shadowrun games. So it's really an engine that is designed by someone who knows what narrative designers need. You can wishlist Adventure Forge now, with a playable demo also coming out during the Steam Next Fest now in June, and a early access release later this year. But if you don't want to wait that long, you can also head down below to the description of this video, where the first 100 people can get closed beta access to Adventure Forge today. So go ahead and check it out, and thanks to Adventure Forge for sponsoring this video. One thing you need to keep in mind as well when you're making that giant list of everything that went bad is that it can be very depressing to make a post-mortem, because let's be honest, you're probably not going to release the next Stardew Valley on launch, and even then, Eric Barone, he made a bunch of mistakes along the way. There will always be things that you can tell yourself like, oh, I should have been better. I think it's very important when you make these post-mortems to really have a dedicated like win section of these are things we actually did well. And there's a lot of stuff you can already include like that. Like number 1, you released the game, which is more than like half of our audience watching this YouTube channel and giving like backseat comments on the game development process. So that's already a pat on the back. Some other like easy ones is the fact that you're doing this post-mortem also means that you want to make a second game probably, and you're open to learning, which is also a win. And then of course, there's probably a bunch of other wins that you're going to have in your development cycle, but of course, I don't know how your development cycle goes. So really write that down and celebrate those as well. There were definitely some things that we did well with Forge Industry already. Like the sound design, whilst not exceptional, was something that, in my opinion, definitely reached the bar in terms of quality desired. So that is definitely something that you need to celebrate as well. It can be very easy to do those post-mortems and go into this downward spiral of everything is bad, game development is horrible, I never want to do this again, I should just sell my soul and start working in like gambling games or in like crypto or whatnot. But it doesn't have to be like that. You definitely need to keep that in mind as well. It's not all horrible. And even if everything is horrible, I also want you to remember that, hey, making mistakes is okay. Unlike what some people want you to believe in like our comments on the YouTube video and whatnot, your first game doesn't need to be a massive success, and it's okay if your first game isn't the best, if it launches with 150 wishlists or whatever. What is important to me is that you do your utmost best to not repeat those mistakes. And that is still hard, don't get me wrong. We made a lot of mistakes with Forge Industry, and we also made some of them once again with Sons of Evergate, which we ended up cancelling, or even Guild Architect, which is the game that we're currently working on right now, which I'm going to be releasing some further information about very soon. We're getting close to a real big playtest, so keep your ass peeled out for that. But really what I want you to do here is not just do this post-mortem once, write down all those mistakes and then forget about it, like shove it in a dark corner and never look at it again, but really, once every so often, look back at, hey, these were the mistakes I made in my previous game. Am I still making them when I'm working on my next game? Maybe you are once again making the mistake of overcomplicating all of your code and not using any assets. well, maybe it's time to face the truth that, hey, I shouldn't keep making the same mistake over and over again. Let me see if I can adjust course here. Really try not to make the same mistake multiple times. And then one other thing that we also got a bunch of comments about is post-mortems. They are a bit different when you're working in a team, because in a team, there is no way to make a post-mortem, in my opinion, where nobody gets offended, because post-mortems are very emotional things. And for example, on that video of 23 mistakes, we got a bunch of comments of people who are like, oh my God, you are just throwing your teammates under the bus. That is not what we're going for. If you're doing a post-mortem with your team, always do it together with them, talking about what was good and bad. And in my opinion, if you are like mentally strong enough to do this, this is the best approach in my opinion, but it's gonna suck, is to put all the blame on yourself. Don't put it on other people. Even if the code that some programmer in your team wrote wasn't optimal or was way too slow in actually being written, that is not his fault. That is instead your fault for not having checked up with them in advance. There's no point about complaining about these things once your game is already out. You should take the blame for that, have the humility and be like, hey, this is my bad. I should have checked in with them earlier. I should have started working on certain things earlier. I should have pushed harder for playtesting more. I think this is going to be very tough because, once again, it can be very doomy when you're like, oh, everything is my fault, but I think this is the most healthy approach if you want to keep working with that same team. And hey, maybe if it was really bad, it could be a thing where you're like, hey, I don't want to work with this freelancer or with this teammate anymore. That is okay, but once again, that's your fault for not seeing the warning signs earlier and figuring out alternative solutions before it was too late. And of course, you can still tell the programmer, for example, that, hey, next time we should look at developing code quicker, but never just be like, hey, this game failed because you were too late in delivering code or your code wasn't optimal. Always offer up solutions instead. Never lead with, this is bad. Always just lead with, here's how we're gonna change for next game. In my opinion, there will never be a benefit to directly telling someone to their face like, hey, this product was garbage and it's your fault, but let's keep working on our next game. It's just not gonna work. And that makes a successful post-mortem. You can write this out, you can make a PowerPoint presentation, I don't care. If you want, you can go over to our Discord server and discuss your own game's post-mortems there as well and get feedback as well on the thoughts you have. That's why so many people share their post-mortems on things like Reddit, for example, because then other developers can also come in and try and identify more blind spots. I have mixed feelings about this, especially when you do it in like a very public setting, like a YouTube video or like the gamedev subreddit, because I felt miserable when I shared my post-mortem on YouTube here. I know there was a lot of value, but you also get a lot of those internet, like not really trolls, but people who are like, I'm obviously better than you guys. Let me just write a giant comment about why you suck. That is not gonna help. If you can do it in a bit more of a closed off community and not completely open, I think you are going to get much better feedback. So I think really check out our Discord for that one. I think that is going to be a better place to do post-mortems. And hey, I can even respond to your post-mortem and give you some of my thoughts as well. Now, if you made it this far into the video, you're probably kind of serious about game development. And then I want to give you a single S-tier strategy still that you can do when working on your next games. And that is the concept of pre-mortems. Post-mortems are done once your game is already dead. That's what mortem means, by the way, if you don't know. Once your game is released, you look at, okay, where did we go wrong? But you can actually do this before your game is out. And this is where you're going to go through the exact same process of being like, hey, we've been working on our game for a month or 2 months or whatever. If our game were to fail at launch, knowing what we know today, what would be the reasons for that? And Thomas and I have actually done a pretty in-depth pre-mortem on our next game, Guild Architect, over on our Patreon, which, by the way, if you're not a patron yet, it features so much extra in-depth content about running a game studio. Check it out. I think there's a lot of value in there. But there, we were able to address some key issues, such as, for example, putting too much of the producer role with William, whereas he was like, I like the game design stuff and I like programming, but I don't want to be the full producer. And we could actually pivot already on time instead of going through this entire process of developing a game and then it failing miserably once again. It has allowed us to shift some things in our development, which I think have a good impact on making Guild Architect a better game. So you can also do this today already. If you're working on a game, you don't even need to have a previous game released. Just sit down for half an hour and once again, do that breakdown, the 4 different categories, what's going well, what's going horrible. If my game were to fail horribly at this point, why would it be? Would it be because I do 0 marketing but the game itself is good? Or face the uncomfortable truth that, hey, my game in the current state, it's just actually not good, it's not fun, nobody likes to play it. I need to throw everything I have game design wise in the garbage and really go back to the drawing board. That's something we had to do for Guild Architect as well. It's never going to be fun usually to do those post-mortems. There's always going to be a lot of issues, but they are oh so critical, I think, if you want to make your games less shitty. And if you're looking for, in general, a way to make your games less shitty, then I would suggest subscribing to this YouTube channel, because we upload 2 videos every week talking about game development and the things that we learn along the way, making our own games, resources that we find that will help you on your game dev journey, or just talk about the game dev process in general. I think it's really interesting, so once again, be sure to subscribe for that. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Let me know, have you done any post-mortems and how was the experience for you? I'm always interested in your comments as well, and I do read all of them, so leave them as well down below. That's all I had to say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!